Ready? Hi, my name's Josh Welton, and this is my podcast, Playing with Fire. We're coming to you live from a little corner in Detroit on Trumbull Road, just up the street from where the Tigers used to play. This is my first podcast. It's been difficult to get going. I've been trying to do this for a while, and every time I get in front of the camera, I just start muttering nonsense. My friends that do podcasts have told me that I just need to fight through it, so that's what I'm going to do. This is, like I said, or did I say, the very first episode. We're going to cover a range of topics just to, just whatever you and your friends talk about. It's kind of the same things that, I've noticed that, like in the welding community, people dig hot rods, people dig rock and roll, rap, food, whatever. That was really dumb, but I'm just going to keep going because I promised myself that's what I'm going to do. So when people ask me how or why, the answer is almost always passion. It's the reason or the quality that gives somebody that extra little bump to put their work to the next level, whether they build $300,000 cars or $2 egg rolls. I actually don't have any idea how much egg rolls cost, but that's just a stupid.
That's probably about right.
That's probably about right. That's a pretty good example. That's a pretty good guess. I'm good at guessing. I'm really good at that, just in case you were wondering. But I have friends in different trades, different industries, and the one thing that connects all of us is we have a passion for whatever we do. And I think that's something that at the other end, the consumer can appreciate, even if they can't put their finger on it. And on the maker end, it's something that we admire in other people. I'm a welder. I'm a fabricator. I write. I travel. And it's because I dig life. I dig experiences. You're given a short amount of time on this earth, too short to sit around and watch TV all night or get in online fights with people on message boards or social media. I just said message boards. Who even does that anymore? It's all about social media. I'm always a little bit behind the curve on technology or fads. Like 8 years ago, somebody was like, you should do YouTube videos. And that's a dumb idea. Everyone already does those. Now those people are raking in millions of dollars a year, and I'm sitting here not making millions of dollars a year. So this podcast, I just want to entertain. I want to have a conversation with people about the things that I like, and I think in turn it'll be things that are enjoyable to listen to. That was all really stupid, but we have the technology to edit, so maybe that's what we'll do. This is very difficult being on this end of the camera. I've done other people's podcasts, but they're kind of directing the conversation, and I just sort of rattle on, and it makes it a lot easier. But this is a little bit more difficult. So maybe that's what this podcast will be about. Josh learning how to do a podcast. And hopefully one day I'll know how to do a podcast, and then we'll have another podcast called Josh Learned How to Do a Podcast, and now says stuff that's worth listening to.
You should change the name of the podcast to Josh Learns How to Podcast.
Josh Learns How to Podcast. It's not Playing with Fire anymore. It's Learning How to Podcast with Josh Welton. The only problem is you're not going to learn how to podcast. You're going to learn how not to podcast. But that could be valuable too. I think the one thing I love Joe Rogan, and obviously he's the king of podcasting. One of the things he said was you need to listen to bad podcast too. So maybe that's what this will be for you. Just a terrible podcast. So you're like, man, I am not going to do that because that guy's a moron. So if I can provide even that service, I think I don't know. But to get back to I'm just staring at Darla now.
What are you going to get back to, Josh?
I didn't even have anything to begin with, so it's kind of hard.
I thought you were going to talk about passion.
I was, and then I already talked about it. It only took a couple of minutes. So let's talk about... I started writing for Dodge Garage recently. That's fun. I've been going to a lot of shows, meeting a lot of people that are very into the modern Mopar community. It's a really tight-knit group. I feel lucky that they've let me in. And writing about that culture and the adventures that I have with I just got a Dodge Demon, which is pretty cool. 840 horsepower, 315 millimeter, 315 by 40, 18-inch drag radials all the way around. It's funky in a good way how it drives. It grips like nothing else I've driven other than the ACR. The ACR probably gripped a little bit better. That also had really sticky race tires. But yeah, so I'm kind of documenting my journey driving that. I got 2,000 miles on it. I still need to get the race PCM installed on it. I'm really trying hard not to do burnouts because the tires are $420 each. So maybe once I become a millionaire, that's all I'll do is burnouts all the time, because that's what I enjoy. I've actually gotten pulled over 8 times in Dodge Press vehicles. I don't know if that's a record, but I'm guessing it probably is. I only got 1 ticket, and I was doing 98 and an 80 in South Dakota. Everyone else let me go. One of those times was, that's a good subject, Josh getting pulled over and how he gets out of the tickets. The ACR one was funny. So we're hauling, doing, we were going fast. I'm not going to say how fast, but it was fast. Faster than the speed limit by a considerable margin. And driving through Utah, I believe it was Beaver, Utah, which later I heard is pretty notorious for their traffic stops. So I kind of got lucky. Anyways, we're driving along, picking our way through traffic, and I see a cop up on the left, and I saw him way before he could have seen me. So I slowed down, and then the Escalade in front of me saw the cop, freaked out, and slammed on his brakes. So then I had to slam on my brakes. By this time, we were already going below the speed limit, and I saw the Charger pull out, lights go on. Before the lights even went on, I was pulling over the side because I knew he was, he had his eyes on me. So pull over, he comes up to the window, and I ask him, what did you pull me over for? He's like, well, you were tailgating. I looked at him and laughed. I'm like, the Escalade? Come on, man. He slammed on his brakes. Yeah, he did. But he's like, I don't want to argue with you, but there was an off-duty officer pacing you a ways back. And I just said, oh. And he said again, he's like, I don't want to argue with you. And I'm like, no, I understand. And he's like, he was pacing you well over 100 miles an hour. And I just kind of laughed and figured I was going to get, I wasn't going to jail because he had no proof that I was actually going that fast other than an off-duty officer who shouldn't have been going that fast pacing me anyways. But he looked at me and he's like, it's probably hard not to drive this car that fast, so just be safe on the rest of your journey. And that was it. Didn't tell me to slow down. Didn't tell me to get off the car, put my hands on the roof or behind my back so he could handcuff me and put me in the slammer. Just said, have a good. It helps that I'm white, so that's one thing that helps me. And the other thing, I think even police officers like stories. They like that you're doing something out of the ordinary. And typically, I'm not going to say that I haven't gotten pulled over around town because it's been the last few years I've gotten pulled over 15 times, and I've only gotten 1 ticket. And I'd say the majority of those were on the road, on road trips. So when the police pull you over, usually I'm driving something that's pretty interesting. So they ask about the car. Then they wonder why I'm driving a car that doesn't belong to me. And usually the car's not stolen, so that's a good thing. But it ranges. They're like. Obviously, the one guy gave me a ticket, and he seemed really cool the whole time, like he wasn't going to give me a ticket, and then he did. And then there's other officers who seemed like they were going to write me up, and then it was, be on your way. So I don't know what the trick is, other than I'm always honest. You always put your window down, your hands up on the steering wheel so they know you're not a threat, and just be cordial with them. The one time I wasn't was the last time I got pulled over. I was pissed because it was the 3rd time that trip, the second time that day, and I literally, in the literal sense of the term literal, had the cruise control set at the speed limit. And I knew he was pacing me for 4 miles. And then the lights went on, and I started screaming, and Darla was laughing because I'm screaming, and I was not going to just be like, "Hi, officer, how are you doing today?" He pulled me over. I go, "What the heck did you pull me over for?" "Oh, well, you were speeding." I said, "No, I wasn't. I was going the speed limit." "Oh, sir, I was pacing you. You were going 5 over." It's like, no, I wasn't. And at that point, he didn't seem real happy, but then I think, Darla, you said something about singing a national anthem? Or
No,
how did that go?
For some reason you told him that I was a singer.
Oh, yeah. I always liked it. If Darla's with me, I try to get her to get me out of tickets because I'm like, Darla, it's St. Darla. She's an angel. Look at her. She could never do anything wrong. And then they're like, "Oh, you're right, sir. Be on your way." And no. This time, though, he actually asked Darla to sing the national anthem. And she was about to, and then he didn't make her. And he let us go. And I said, "Well, I'm just glad that you guys," because I told him that was the second time I got pulled over that day. I said, "I'm just glad you guys didn't catch me when I was doing double the speed limit." And he was like sort of backing away out of the car at that time. And he jumped back and he's like, "What?" "Nothing, officer." And I took off. And that was the last I saw of him. That was the last time I got pulled over. It was in a wide body Hellcat 6-speed in Nevada? I don't even remember what state it was in. But we were heading from Bonneville up north through the U.S. I think, was it that night or the next night? Or no, my dates get all jumbled together. But we ended up on that trip going through a blizzard. And this is in a Hellcat wide body with summer performance tires. Wasn't expecting to hit a snowstorm, and we were in Wyoming, I believe it was, and it just started coming down. 3 hours, white knuckle, which is apropos because the color of the car is white knuckle, but it was pretty sketchy. I got some pictures, and it looks like, when you put your brights on in the snow, and it looks like you're going through the warp speed like Millennium Falcon. That's what this looked like. Darla was a little nervous, as she tends to be in those situations, but I like driving in the snow. I like a challenge, so we pushed through and made it to the other side. It's not something I'd recommend doing, but the car handled okay. That trip also, we went to the Bonneville Salt Flats, and the year before Kenny and I stopped, my buddy Kenny, we had an orange with black stripes narrow body Hellcat, and went out to the Salt Flats, but they were buried in water. So we went on the peninsula. We took some pictures, did a bunch of burnouts on the little peninsula that juts out into the Salt Flats, and it's so cool. It's such an eerie feeling. It's so vast. It's like you're on another planet. There's just nobody else around for miles. You can't see the freeway from there. At night, you can sort of see the little lights from the freeway, but other than that, you're just kind of enveloped in this just hugeness. And I think it's probably the most haunted place on earth, too, because it's got the spirits of all the land speed record holders and the people who wrecked. And there's just this, and it goes back to that passion. Like, to race on the salt, you've got to have passion. You've got to love that thing that you do, whether it's racing on 2 wheels or 4 wheels in a car or a moped or whatever you're taking out there to try to break a record. Because I think they have, I don't know how many records they have, but it's like hundreds, because people will just make up a vehicle and go out there and be like, "I just set the record for 3-cylinder bi-turbo supercharged car on 3 wheels with a midget driving." I'm sorry, a little person. That came out wrong. My apologies. But anyways, you get the point. So you just have to have a drive to get out there. So this last year, Darla and I went, and it was dry-ish. So I walked out on it, and I was like, no, this should be good. So we get out, and we're picking our way through the Salt Flats, and I'm taking pictures, and Darla's taking pictures, and then I hop in the car, and we drive it a little bit farther and farther until we got to the point where it was dusk, and we couldn't even see the peninsula from where we were. We were pretty far out, so it's like, it's time to go. So we start heading back towards the asphalt, and like I said, it was muddy in some areas. So there were definitely some wet spots, and you get into wet salt, and that's a done deal. So if you look it up, there's videos of guys getting their rig stuck out there, and it makes a giant mess, and it's a pain to get out of. So we're driving back, and Darla's looking at the GPS and going, we are going the wrong direction. And I was like, no, I can see it. I can see the lights. I can't see anything. I have horrible eyesight, but I'm very stubborn, and I always think I'm right. So I kept going in that direction, and she kept saying, we're supposed to be going, like, I don't know, we were probably headed 30 degrees north in the wrong direction. Finally, I'm like, wow, you're right. And we were super north of the peninsula in an area where it was not hard salt. It was very mushy. And I could feel the car sinking. And Darla was like, we're going in the wrong direction. And I said, yeah, but I can't stop. I've got to gradually turn and keep going. If I would have stopped, we would have been stuck. And I think one of the things that helped us was the tires are super wide, so we just kind of floated on top. But it was spinning. I had the traction control off to make sure that I could control the wheel speed. But I probably came closer than I'd like to admit to getting the Challenger stuck buried in the salt at like 9 o'clock at night on a random November night at Bonneville. So that's a story. And that's, I don't know, I went to my buddy Sam Smith. He's a writer, awesome writer, probably my favorite writer. Writes for Road and Track. He's an editor there. And if you get a chance to look up his stuff, it's super rad. It's one of the things that inspired me to get into writing, and he's helped me out a lot with my writing. So 2 years ago, he's like, hey, I'm going to Le Mans, you should come with me. A 24-hour Le Mans race. It's obviously 24 hours straight, and it's in Le Mans outside of Paris. And I've got this kind of new feeling since I had a few surgeries a few years ago, which I'm sure at some point I'll talk about. But ever since that restricted me a lot. I couldn't work for a while, made me kind of reevaluate things. And I used to always say no, and come up with excuses why I couldn't do something. And that I kind of changed my perspective and figured, I'm going to say yes to any adventure that I can swing. Some that I can't swing, and I'm just gonna do it. So he said, you should come out with me, and we'll just stay up all 24 hours of the race, and that'll be the story. I was like, God, that sounds like fun. So I flew out on a Thursday night, got there Friday, took the train. I got lost, found a train, got there, hung out. We were staying in a chateau that Ford put him up in. I slept on his floor that night and got up early. I didn't sleep much because I was sleeping on the floor. So I was up for like 40 hours. I was up a lot before the race. Then that morning to when we got back, it was probably 40 hours. And he could get into the hospitality suites. I couldn't. And we didn't camp. We didn't have seats. So I was just wandering the racetrack for, 40 days and 40 nights, except for there were hours. But it wasn't very much fun. But it was an adventure. And at one point, Sam was like, hey, you know what? Sometimes it's just what you make of it. If you have a bad attitude, then it's going to be bad. And I was like, no, sometimes it just sucks. And I'm fine with that. Because it's not an adventure if you know everything is going to go right. Like, part of the thrill of base jumping is people die doing it. There's an adrenaline rush. You don't get adrenaline rushes by sitting in your chair and watching TV, just like you don't have experiences by sitting in your chair and watching TV. You just live vicariously through other people. So you have to live. You have to get out there and experience life to have those feelings. And that's one of the risks you take. So I didn't have a great time. And then I was like, I don't even really like motorsports. And why did you come? Because it's an adventure. It's something to do. It's something that I can talk about, which I'm doing now. And we were up for 40 hours. And Porsche ended up losing the race. No, wait. Not Porsche. Toyota. Why am I getting this wrong? Anyways, if you're into 24-hour Le Mans, you know what happened. There was a heartbreaking end. And obviously for one team, it was jubilation, and for the other team, I think it was Toyota failed and Porsche won, if I remember correctly, which I probably don't. But seeing the effort that it took for these guys to campaign a car for 24 hours straight and then to lose it in basically the last minute, the last lap, like, that's brutal. And I wouldn't have experienced that or felt that looking through a TV the same way I did being there and watching those guys from that crew walk by with their heads down. Like, I don't know. And they were so good about it. Like, they were very polite. They weren't losing their tempers, but you could just tell it gutted them. And that's another case where the payoff of the adventure, of the race, of whatever you're doing is so huge that is almost equal and opposite to the pain you feel when you don't reach that thing. So there's nothing wrong with failing. I've failed at a lot of things. You don't get the highs if you don't understand the lows. Like, there was this, I took a Christian, actually it was when I first met Darla. It was a Intro to Western Religion class when I was at Hillsdale College. And one of the questions the professor asked was, would you rather be a pig in shit and happy, or understand the vastness of the world and the experiences and the feelings you can have, but understand that you're going to not reach the peak all the time, and that there's going to be sometimes you're miserable. And I kind of took the devil's advocate kind of way. It was like, I'd rather be the pig in shit, because you don't know any better. You're just happy. And yeah, some people are like that, and that's not the worst thing to be. But you're only going to reach a certain level of happiness. And I think life, a lot of time we think that, what's the key to happiness? What makes me happy? You don't need to be happy all the time. Sometimes it's just about feeling, and whether it's anger or sadness or happiness, I think that adds to the human experience. Like, I feel in our life, my wife and I's life, last few years has just been a roller coaster, but it hasn't really been a roller coaster so much as it's been like extreme highs and extreme lows all at the same time. And it kind of messes with your mind, and you don't know what's up and what's down, but there's a richness to that. There's a quality to that sort of being that you don't get any other way. So I think that rambling, incoherent babbling is sort of what I want to do. I want to go in a lot of different directions. Obviously, like I mentioned, I fabricate. I'm a welder for General Dynamics Land Systems in their prototype shop. I get to work on prototype military vehicles. It's a job that's taken me to a lot of different places. I welded in Iraq last year, which was super cool. I have a license to drive an Abrams, which not everyone gets to say. Every morning I go into work and I smell jet fuel and hear the turbines firing up, even though I'm on typically the other side doing metal work. It's cool to be in that atmosphere, and I love what I do. I also, like I mentioned before, I write for Dodge Garage. It's a website that was recently launched, and it's all about the Dodge culture, and there's a lot of really interesting people in that culture. And the cars themselves, the guys who build them, like I was talking about before, they're passionate. The guys that design, the engineer, they care about what they do. They're gearheads in and out of the shop. The guys that build the cars in Brampton, or when the Viper was built in Detroit, they're all people that care about what they do. They're passionate about what they do, and that shows through in the final product. And that's one of the things that I think draws me to Dodge and SRT is the people. They're approachable, they're smart, and they love what they do. And that's a combination for success, especially when you have people in high places that allow you to do that, rather than being counters saying, you can't build that, that's too expensive. You do something that's good for the enthusiast, the consumer, to get excited about what you. That's a bunch of rambling there, but yeah. So
I feel like you were saying stuff that was in Jeff's interview right there.
Yeah, probably. Anyways, I dig it. I dig the Dodge Garage stuff because I get to tell the stories of some of my friends that you're not going to hear anywhere else, about their vehicles, their experiences, how they got to where they are, what they enjoy doing now. And I think that the consumer likes seeing that because it gives them validation. Like I remember years ago, I'm still a big football fan. There was a guy, I think it was a linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me. And in an interview, he said, I don't like playing football. I'm just good at it, and it's my job. And there's nothing technically wrong with that, but I didn't like watching him play after that because I was like, this guy doesn't even like what he does. Like, I don't know why, but that just kind of, I don't know, it hit me in the wrong way. I like when I see baseball players that they care about what they do. They run into the wall, make a catch, and they're pumping their fist, or they slide around a tag at home plate and score the game-winning run, and everyone comes out and mobs them. Like, that's what you live for, isn't it? If you're not doing something you enjoy, life's too short to do shit that you don't like. Life's too short to be miserable at your day job or be miserable. Hi, Lucy. Lucy's being held like a little baby. Oh, she's so cute. Precious little Lucy. Hi, Lou. We have a little 9-pound multi-poo and a 50-pound pit bull, and they're the best ever. Here's Lucy. She's probably giving her skeptical Lou face right now. Or is she afraid? Is she super afraid? Oh, now she wants to talk. What do you got to say, Lou? What do you have to say? No, you don't want to? Okay. Rock-a-bye Lucy in the treetop. When the tree falls, Lucy will drop. Hi. So, I like dogs too. We might talk about dogs a little bit. Maybe I'll interview my dogs. That'll make for compelling audio and video. April is, I don't know where she is, but she's a 50-pound rescue.
She's hiding in the office.
She's hiding. Things make her nervous when they're out of the ordinary, and this is out of the ordinary. We don't typically set up microphones and lights and have Josh talk in a corner.
I think it was
the clapping? Oh, it was clapping. She gets nervous. She was a rescue. She had a rough life. She was a backyard breeder in Detroit, and she was rescued after spending 2 weeks in a garage after being dragged by a car like along asphalt. When the cops found her, she was at a homicide investigation scene, hanging out by a dead body. She had gangrene, collapsed lungs, road rash all over her body, and some people, typically in Detroit, they euthanize dogs, but a lot of times there's officers and detectives that love dogs, so they'll call an out-of-city place to come rescue her. So that's what they did. They called Home Forever, which is where we had the brown dog, Whitson, where we got him from years ago. And they took her to Wilson Veterinary Clinic, and she spent a long time there. She had a metal plate put in one of her legs. She still has scars all over her body. She's a little rough, but she gets happier every day. Like when we first got her, she was so neurotic. Her tail was between her legs, and she was just scared of everything. We got Lucy. Lucy brought her out of her shell a little bit. Lucy's the team leader. Like, she's the captain, and April follows her around. But it's just been so cool to see her grow into being a confident dog. And she's older now. She's 8 or 9, but her tail's always up. She's always smiling. Not everything scares her except for doing a podcast does, I guess. But so I'll probably talk about dogs. That's a passion of mine and Darla's. I'm hoping to have Darla be on the show podcast too, because it's just a lot easier to do when you can bounce something off somebody.
Just talk to Lucy.
She'd probably have stopped me a long time ago from rambling on. We've thought about releasing rap videos, because when I take Ambien at night, if I try to stay up, I get really crazy. And there's a classic video of me rapping to Lucy and telling her she couldn't go into the VIP room. It was pretty amazing. Anyways, that was a lot, and probably not a lot of it made sense, but that's kind of my head. So, peace out. I'm going to keep trying to do this on a regular basis, and if you have any suggestions for things you'd like to talk to me about, or me to talk about, I am all for it. It can be, like I said, it can be welding, it can be fabrication, it can be, heck, I'll even talk about baseball, or, obviously the Dodge Garage stuff. I write for The Fabricator too, the Welder magazine. Actually, my column in The Welder is called Playing with Fire, so that's the same one I'm using for this. I don't typically hold my tongue, and I literally play with fire every day. So I figured that was a good place to start. Lucy, say goodbye. Bye, guys. All right.
She wants to go outside.
She wants to go do her business. So, peace out. This is Playing with Fire. I'm Josh. Check me out at Welder Assassin on Instagram or Brown Dog Welding at Instagram. And I have a new website, browndogwelding.com, with sculptures, writing, and podcasts soon on it. So, have a good one.